What would you do if your ship suddenly turned toxic? If the air you breathe could ignite into flames, and the only choice left was to leap into the freezing sea? That's exactly what happened to Captain Jake Anderson of Deadliest Catch. After years of heartbreak, addiction, and clawing his way up from homelessness, Jake found himself facing the ultimate test, ordering his crew to abandon the Titan Explorer. It wasn't just another storm. This was a silent, invisible threat that could have ended everything. But the real shock came after, because not everyone believed the danger was real. Jake Anderson wasn't born into privilege, and he certainly wasn't handed the captain's chair. He started like so many others on the Bering Sea, cold, scared, and green. Back in 2007, Jake joined Sig Hansen's legendary Northwestern as a deckhand. The job wasn't glamorous, but he stood out. Determined, hardworking, and eager to learn, Jake quickly earned respect. Within just 2 years, he was promoted to deck boss, a position many fishermen fight for and never achieve. But Jake wasn't content with being just another name on deck. By 2013, he transitioned onto the Saga, a boat plagued with mechanical issues and bad luck. Over time, Jake would take over as captain, battling both the ocean and the doubts of those who questioned his leadership. Each season tested him: gear failures, rough catches, and constant comparisons to the more seasoned captains. Fast forward, and Jake now sits at the helm of the Titan Explorer, not just as captain but as part owner. It's a hard-earned symbol of everything he's endured. For a man who once lived in his car, that wheelhouse represents survival. But Jake's story isn't just about climbing the ranks, it's about what shaped him off deck. And his personal life held storms far darker than any squall on the Bering Sea. Jake Anderson's rise is impressive, but his past reveals why he's different from most captains. His story is scarred by loss. First came the devastating news of his sister's passing, a blow that shattered his family. Not long after, his father vanished without a trace in the Washington mountains. Jake carried the pain publicly, often breaking down on Deadliest Catch as cameras captured the raw truth of his grief. Years later, his father's remains were finally discovered. A moment of closure, but one that couldn't erase the scars. On top of this, Jake wrestled with personal demons. In his younger years, he fell into alcohol addiction. The spiral left him homeless, living in his car for nearly 2 years. For many, that would have been the end of the story. But Jake clawed his way back, rebuilding his life step by step. His memoir, Relapse, lays bare the ugly truth: pain, struggle, and survival against the odds. This combination of tragedy and redemption gave Jake a toughness you don't fake. It's what carried him when storms raged and the odds turned ugly. But nothing in his past could prepare him for the moment he faced on the Titan Explorer. Because when ammonia began leaking into the ship, survival wasn't just about grit. It was about making a decision no captain ever wants to make. The Bering Sea has a reputation for throwing storms that can crush steel. But Jake's threat in Season 21 didn't roar with wind or waves. It hissed silently. Deep within the Titan Explorer, a dangerous ammonia leak developed. Ammonia is used in refrigeration systems, vital for preserving crab at sea. But when it escapes, it can burn lungs, ignite with terrifying force, and turn a working deck into a death trap. The crew's first instinct was to shut down the engines and pumps to stop the spread. But that solution created a new nightmare. With no power, the vessel began to list, tilting dangerously in the icy waters. Time was running out. For Jake, the choice was brutal: risk staying aboard a ship slowly losing stability, or order his crew to abandon the vessel entirely. Knowing rescue was far from guaranteed. Every second mattered, and in those moments, a captain's calm means everything. The order came. Jake's voice cracked across the deck: abandon ship. It's a command no captain ever wants to issue, because it means you're gambling lives against the sea itself. As lifeboats were launched, the crew scrambled, clutching the few possessions they could carry. They slipped into the unforgiving Bering Sea night, their ship fading in the distance. But while Jake may have thought the worst was behind them, the most dramatic chapter was still waiting in the dark. To an outsider, the words "abandoned ship" might sound dramatic, even cinematic. But for a captain, it's the last line of defense. Jake knew this better than anyone. As Sig Hansen later said, hearing Jake's voice over the radio giving that order was heart-wrenching. For seasoned fishermen, abandoning a vessel doesn't just mean leaving steel behind. It means stepping away from years of sweat, debt, and often a lifeline to survival. In Jake's case, it was especially crushing. The Titan Explorer wasn't just another boat. He was a part owner. Walking away from it was like losing a piece of himself. Yet in that moment, there was no room for hesitation. The ammonia leak meant invisible danger. A single spark could have turned the ship into a fireball. As the crew huddled in the lifeboat, the icy waves slammed against the sides. For hours, nothing but darkness and uncertainty surrounded them. It was the kind of moment that strips a man down to pure survival. And though Jake tried to stay composed, every fisherman knows the truth. No Coast Guard rescue is immediate in the remote Bering Sea. This wasn't a drill, and for Jake, the silence of the water was deafening. But just as hope began to slip, a familiar light broke through the gloom. Help was closer than anyone dared imagine. That light came from the Wizard, captained by Keith Colburn. In a sea where rivalries run deep, this was no time for competition. Keith's crew spotted Jake's lifeboat and moved fast. When the Wizard drew alongside, relief swept through Jake's men. They clambered aboard, exhausted, soaked and shaken, but alive. The rescue wasn't just physical, it was emotional. In a fleet where everyone has stared down death at some point, saving one another is a reminder that beneath the competition lies a bond stronger than crab quotas. The moment Jake and Keith locked eyes, there was no doubt the Bering Sea may divide captains, but survival unites them. For viewers, the drama was gripping. For Jake's crew, it was life or death. The Wizard's deck exploded with cheers as the men realized they'd cheated the odds. It was the kind of moment that makes Deadliest Catch more than just a fishing show. It's a raw glimpse into life at the edge. But just when fans thought the ordeal was over, another storm brewed. This one didn't come from the sea, it came from the internet. Because what viewers saw on TV didn't line up with what some believed actually happened, and that sparked a whole new wave of speculation. As the episode aired, fans rushed online to dissect every frame. On Reddit, heated debates broke out. Some argued the ammonia leak was very real, and that abandoning ship was the only choice Jake could have made. Others weren't so sure. Post pointed out that after the dramatic lifeboat scene, Jake and his crew apparently returned to the Titan Explorer, restarted the engines, and carried on fishing not long afterward. Skeptics claimed the show exaggerated events for drama. Phrases like scripted and staged started surfacing in threads. A few even mocked the moment, suggesting that the threat wasn't as dire as portrayed. But longtime fans pushed back, defending Jake. They reminded everyone that ammonia leaks aren't theater, they're lethal. And for Jake, calling abandoned ship meant risking everything, including his reputation. The truth likely sits somewhere in the middle. Yes, reality TV thrives on editing, tension, and cliffhangers. But on the Bering Sea, danger doesn't need exaggeration. Whether dramatized or not, the risk was real enough for Jake to put his name and crew on the line. And that's where the conversation shifted from whether the event was real to what it revealed about Jake himself. Because when the cameras cut, the choices still rest on the captain's shoulders. And Jake Anderson has proven he'll make the call, even when it means losing everything. So what really happened to Jake Anderson? The truth is layered. On one hand, he faced a legitimate emergency, an ammonia leak capable of ending lives in seconds. On the other, viewers were left to wonder how much of what they saw was heightened for television. That debate may never end. But what's undeniable is Jake's resilience. Here's a man who lost his sister, his father, and nearly lost himself to addiction and homelessness. Yet today, he commands his own vessel, fights storms most of us can't imagine, and still refuses to back down, even when forced to order the one thing no captain ever wants: abandon ship. It's not just a story about danger, it's about endurance. Jake's life mirrors the Bering Sea itself, unpredictable, merciless, and yet filled with moments of raw beauty and triumph. Every season he returns, knowing each trip could be his last. And maybe that's why Jake resonates with so many fans. He isn't polished, he isn't untouchable, he's raw, flawed, and relentlessly human. Watching him survive again and again reminds us of something powerful. Survival isn't about being fearless, it's about being willing to face the fear and keep going anyway. The Titan Explorer sails on, and so does Jake Anderson. The question isn't whether he'll face more storms, it's how many more times he'll rise when the sea tries to drag him down.